Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of this very exciting telesummit today, Around the World with the Thurston Girls. So I'd like to welcome you and introduce myself. I'm Ingrid Surratt. I'm a life transitions coach, and I work principally with baby boomer women on helping them with this next stage of their lives. And I wanted to start this series of telesummits. The mission and goal of these telesummits are going to be that each month we're going to be hosting an hour-long interview with people that have done some amazing things in their lives. They're ordinary people like you and me, and they chose to live life, not just experience it. Or they've risen to the challenge, they've conquered those obstacles, they've discovered new things about themselves and others, exercised positivity, and basically inspire, motivate, and empower us. And another message that we want to relay in these telesummits are that it's never too late to start something new. So we aim to bring you stories of challenge, courage, inspiration, and pure joy, and this is one of them. So I'm delighted to introduce to you our kickoff program, Around the World with the Thurston Girls, featuring Rachel S. Thurston and her mom, Karen Custer Thurston. So you see them in this wonderful photo. And before I get started, I do have to give you a few logistics. We have a whole bunch of really wonderful slides, but they are going to be for background only. They're not coordinated with the interview. They're just for you to enjoy. We're going to take questions at the end of the telesummit, and you can type those in the question box in the box that you see on the right-hand side. And I'm not sure if it's the question box or the chat box that's going to work for you, so try either one of those. Right now you are muted, but we will unmute you at the end of this telesummit so that you can also ask questions to us verbally. And we're probably going to go a little bit over the 5 to 6 time frame in order to be able to accommodate those questions. And I also wanted to tell you that there will be a recording available after today's telesummit, and it's going to be sent to all registrants. I've had some people email me and ask me because they couldn't be on the live event, and I assured them that they would be getting a recording. So without further ado, we go on to today's program. So for 1 month every year for the past 13 years, this mother-daughter team have traveled together, independent of tours and organized trips, to explore and experience the sights, sounds, culinary delights, food, culture, and people of this wondrous and diversified world. 6 countries, I mean 6 continents, excuse me, and many, many countries. And for me personally, it's been so delightful for me to get to know them. They are really wonderful people, and it's been a real joy. So I'm going to just briefly give you a bio, but I want them to expand on this. Rachel is a travel writer, a photographer, and a former outdoor guide. She's written and published several articles about her travel experiences with her mom and has a Facebook page called World Travel for Free Spirits. Her mom, Karen, is a fitness trainer, dancer, and dance choreographer who's been doing that for many, many years. She has a passion for empowering women to be all that they can be. So, Rachel and Karen, I'd like to ask you a question about your bios. Can you talk a little bit more about your backgrounds and what inspired you to start traveling together? And Rachel, if I
Oh
could
my
start
goodness.
with you, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. So wow, it's a great way to start off. I thought mom was going first, so I was just sitting
Oh,
back, ready
well,
to
we can
listen
do
to
that
mom.
if you prefer. It's
No,
fine.
I'm so sorry.
No, I was going to say,
I
who's going to go first?
I can go.
I
I'll go.
gave
I'll go.
birth.
I was kind of mesmerized. We're really really happy to be here, Ingrid, and thank you to all of you who are attending right now. Um, I'm impressed that you're able to condense our bios down like that, and you did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
I've been, yeah, I've been travel writing and a travel writer and photographer for probably 15 years, and was an outdoor guide before that. And I've also presented, to public classrooms, slideshows on our travels. And I'd say that my background that led me to travel is I always remember traveling with my parents, and they were big adventurers and into camping in the outdoors. And my grandmother, my father's mother, was a huge traveler, and she took me to Japan when I was probably 13 years old. And then my parents started taking me out of school for extended spring breaks. We went to South Africa in 87 during the years of apartheid. We went to the Amazon for my 15th birthday, and I definitely stuck out, I think, in a small town in Indiana for the trips we'd go on. It wasn't like your classic Disneyland trip. And mom and I started going on road trips when I was young. And then after my parents' divorce in 1993, I think we really started expanding those trips. And I think that's when the dynamic between us changed. And we went from mother daughter to really friends and sisters. And I think it was in 2000 and 2001, we decided to go on a really big international trip to a developing world country. And this was away from any tour group, it was just on our own. And one of my best friends, Heather, was living in Bangladesh. And we decided we'd go to Nepal and meet up with Heather. And that trip was momentous for us, stepping out of our comfort zone. There were many moments when we were completely freaked out and way beyond our comfort zones and afraid sometimes. But in the end, I think we realized that it's just this incredible country, and we found it intoxicating and an enchanting place. And then we really caught the bug to go on trips every year after that.
It's really empowering to feel the fear and do it anyway. It's actually one of my favorite books by Susan
Yeah.
Jeffers, because it's exactly what you're talking about. So good for you. And Karen, let's hear from you. What are your thoughts about this and your background?
Well, this is fascinating listening to your questions, listening to what Rachel has to say, because you're just both so cool. I started traveling with Rachel's dad because he was a hunter, and we just traveled all over the parts of the United States. And then when we had a little bit of extra money, we started leaving the country, and Rachel would go with us. So this all started with hunting big game animals. And when he and I ended the marriage, Rachel brought up Nepal, and it just kind of fell out of the universe that we started. And it was interesting when I came back from that trip, and I had been so, like she said, just fearful of so many things that were very unusual. I found that I could not unpack my backpack, and I looked at that and couldn't figure out why I wasn't done with learning the lessons that came in that trip.
Yeah.
I couldn't unpack. I mean, it was very emotionally confusing, but I went back to Nepal the next year, and we've gone to the countries we have. She is a marvelous partner to travel with, and I'll say I can't speak for Rachel. I am completely blessed to have her company, to have her okay with me traveling with her, and we just keep going to different places. And it is very addicting to meet the incredible people we meet, sometimes not even speaking my language. You can still communicate. Seeing the vistas that we do, the incredible scenery, and having the emotional experiences that bond us. Every time I go, I think I cannot be bonded closer to her, and every time I'm closer to her because what we've experienced. It is, there just aren't any words.
Well, I'm going to give Rachel a chance to respond to that because I'm willing to bet that she feels the same way.
I absolutely do. I'm beaming ear to ear and thinking about the etiquette of going, I love you too, Mama, on a national webinar. But I do, I'm so incredibly, I just have a big warm fuzzy for my mama, and we're so blessed to be able to do this trip. And
That's
she
really
should have answered
wonderful.
that question first.
Well, Karen, one of the things that you said to me when we were preparing for this is you are really passionate about fitness and the correlation of dance with the fitness. And you said something to me about fitness being a driving force behind travel that I really connected to that statement.
Gosh, now I don't remember the context, but springing off of that phrase, when we first chose Nepal, I was in Nepal the first 3 years out of the first 4 years we traveled.
Uh-huh.
And again, I'm trying not to speak for Rachel because I don't want to do that. We were up in the Himalayas, which is a big deal. I mean, I had to be as fit as I could be, and I take that very seriously. Anybody who knows me is going to laugh when I say I take it seriously. I'm very responsible, and I want to be able to hold up my end. So, I mean, I'm training all the time for these things that we do. We've done quite a bit of high altitude, and you have to be in shape. So I'm delighted it works into my lifestyle.
That's great. That's really great.
Thank you. Good question.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I got more for you. You ready?
You're welcome.
Bring it on, bring it on.
Okay. All right. So, what made you choose to travel on your own as opposed to taking tours or going on organized trips? And what were the advantages and the drawbacks of doing it that way?
Rachel,
Um,
you go ahead.
sure. Um, you know, we both believe that tours can have their place, and I'll just do a disclaimer that we do occasionally go on short tours to see more of a city. We've been on ghost tours in Tasmania, and we recently did a tour for a trek in Peru, and they definitely have their place. But what I think I found overall is you really get to experience the heartbeat of a country and culture when you're riding local buses, you're eating from street vendors, and you're traveling with a loose plan that's subject to allowing for synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of my best memories from our travels are these magical moments that come up unexpectedly. Um, we had rented a driver to take us out into these, you know, rural areas of Cambodia to look at a temple, and our car, we had a flat tire, and we ended up on the side of the road with this group of Cambodian school children, and we started singing singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you know, because they were singing their school songs for us, and we just had this incredible cultural exchange. Or dancing with, you know, Nepalis at a little hut in the mountains on a trek to Everest Base Camp. It's those moments that I think when you're in a larger group, you're more insulated from the culture that you're
Mm-hmm.
traveling through.
Yeah.
And I'm more likely to immerse myself in a culture and the language when it's just me or it's mom and me. We've both done travel on our own as well. And honestly, there's no better travel partner than my mom. She's just fantastic. We're aligned in so many ways. And I do think there's a place for it, a time and place for the trips. But we just find that there's a lot more flexibility in a trip, and there's a lot more adventure and synchronicity, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
May I say, and Rachel, did I cut you off?
No, oh, could I? No, can I add something though? If it's possible for Andres to move to the next slide, they can actually see a picture of us from that Peru trip that I just mentioned. That would be great.
Is this the one you mean?
Go ahead. It's not changing. It's not changing on my screen for some reason.
Okay. So the one that I'm looking at right now is Atlas Mountains, Morocco.
For some reason, it's not translating on the screen I'm looking at. I don't. I only see the first slide.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, let me check screen sharing and see.
And thanks to the rest of you guys for waiting. I put some really fun slides there as a background that we thought would be fun for you guys
Huh.
to see.
Yeah. So, okay. Would you like me to go back, Rachel, to the one that we had before? Let me see, which one was it that we went to before? I can't move it.
How about
Tibet.
if I
It
how
was
about if I
Tibet.
add to that question while you're doing that?
Sure, please do.
Uh, one of the trade-offs for not being on an organized tour from the time you hit the airport, which would certainly be easier, are the enormous number of details that we work out in transit, how we get to somewhere. Peru, where we were just in May, is a huge country, and we had to decide. we chose to decide again to go on our own, and so we had to decide bus or car or automobile to get around where to go. In New Zealand, South Island, New Zealand, Rachel took on the task of figuring out when the tides were so that we could do our Abel Tasman trek. And she had to figure when the tides were receding so we could make it through on that trek. That's what everybody has to do. So bless her heart, she will dive into these enormous details of things that tour operators would do. So the trade-off is somebody else doing that, saving you time, and then you pay the money for them to do that. And I just appreciate all the details that she goes to.
Well, that
Well,
was one of
thanks,
the
Mama.
things that you told me. Both of
You're
you
welcome.
expressed so much appreciation about the amount of time and effort it takes to plan out a trip on your own like this, rather than a tour where it's kind of done for you.
We spent 2 months on the phone as
Wow.
much as we could for Peru.
Yeah, there were some. I think some trips have a lot more logistics. That we did a backpacking trip. This was the most logistically challenging in Abel Tasman National Park in New Zealand, and there were these tides, and so you had to reserve huts ahead of time depending on the tides and when you could go across these paths, and that was logistically challenging. But for us, part of the fun too is the planning, I think, and then leaving room for spontaneity.
One of the
So.
things that you mentioned to me, excuse me, a lot was food. A lot. So, I
Oh,
mean, we'll
yes.
talk about it some more, but that seemed to be a real highlight of this.
Good food is a real highlight.
Absolutely. I mean, I did I interrupt you, Mom?
Well, I didn't know if we wanted us to talk about food. You said you'd check in on that later, Ingrid, but we can go on food if
I
you want.
will. No, I do have a question just about that. So
Okay,
let's move
okay,
on to the
we'll wait.
next one. And actually, it may come up with this question, which is, what were some of the highlights of your travels? And one of the lines that you said to me that I really liked was the surreal moments that make lasting memories. And you've been to so
Mm.
many countries. Which ones were your favorite countries? What were the highlights? What were your favorite moments together? Can you expand a little bit on that?
Let's keep the
Absolutely.
pattern of you going first, Rachel.
Ha, that's great. Um, okay. So gosh, I'm so sorry. I feel like Mom is way more articulate than me. She's got the webinar mojo going today. Um, okay, so some of the highlights for me, it's these magical moments that happen unexpectedly. Um, and then there are also the moments that are brutal at the time and absolutely miserable in the moment, but later on you're like, let's go do that again. And one of those moments was we crossed the world's highest pass called the Turan La. It's about 17,000 feet plus some change, and we crossed that in Nepal in January, and that was so masochistic. We got up before sun. Gosh, we had taken a week just to climb to that spot to go across this pass, and people get really sick crossing this pass. And we had a cook make some boiled eggs for us, and one of the hikers actually had a boiled egg in his breast pocket, and it froze because it was so cold. It was in his breast pocket and it
Wow.
froze. And it's funny because in the moment, you're just so cold and you're so tired, and the wind is just pushing you over, and you look back and you think that was awesome, let's do it again. And we keep, I think we're kind of gluttons for punishment because we go on these treks, and I have to say the treks for me are some of the best highlights of my life, and I get chills talking about it with my mom. We've trekked all around the world in
Hmm.
Morocco and Australia and Ecuador and Nepal. It's going these treks, and I think one of my greatest joys is just hearing my mom laugh. It's when she's really tired. I have this tradition of doing my Mike Myers Scottish impression, and it always brings up her mood. Or we pretend to be Darth Vader and Han Solo battling with light swords using our walking sticks. Um, I also had some great memories of around animals. I got to hug a baby elephant in Thailand, and we stumbled on to a woman who was rehabilitating a baby wombat in Tasmania. And oh my God, there is nothing cuter than a baby wombat just skittering across a
Oh,
little
wow.
linoleum floor, its little butt
Oh,
kind of
no.
moving back and forth. It's just, I mean, it's just stupid cute. It's so those are some of my favorite memories, and there's so many you can't even name, but definitely the connections with my mom.
There are so many, and I want to use that trek across the Turong Law that she referred to. And for people who are listening, a trek for us, or a track sometimes it's called in New Zealand and Tasmania, means that you're away from any help, you're away from any road, any motorized conveyance. In many of the places we've been, a helicopter can't come in and get us because of the altitude. And this
Wow.
is what all trekkers are doing. So generally, because it might be hard for you to understand, what she referenced there, Rachel had altitude sickness symptoms
Oh, I forgot about that.
before we summited. Altitude sickness can kill you. She had
Yeah.
all the drugs, and what scared me before we went up, and we had to wait for a third person because it's unsafe to cross this pass with only two of us, because I could not take care of her and myself if she went downhill. She had all the drugs. Here she is the night before we go for it, because somebody did wander into camp. She's telling me what to give her when, and I want to tell you, I don't ever want to hear that from her again. She's as good as an EMT to have along. So we head out. She's got all the symptoms. We know people have died on the pass. It's winter.
Wow.
So obviously we made it, and on the way down she blows out a knee.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
5,000-foot drop, 5,000-foot descent on
Wow.
rubble, on rock sliding rock. I gave her my one trekking pole I had, and she blew out a knee, and she's totally not even brought that up today. And she finished the trek.
I totally forgot about that. Instead, I remember the frozen egg and the laughter, you know?
And
The joy. I call that the amnesia of adventure. I wrote a
exactly. I
story
was
for
just about to say that, Rachel. I love that expression.
I wrote a story for Women's Adventure magazine, and it was about the sheer misery on those treks. Sometimes you're soaking wet and you're hungry and you're just cursing. You're cursing yourself. Why did we choose to do this again? And yet we keep doing it.
Well, that's why memories are a funny thing. They're very short-lived, you know. You only remember the good stuff. And
Exactly, like childbirth.
exactly. That's exactly right. So I'm surprised that you guys didn't talk about the food in terms of your highlights, because one of the things that you said to me was that sometimes in the most rural areas, the most unexpected places,
Yep.
you had the most incredible food.
Yes, yes, and we can go on food. I didn't know we had permission to go on food.
Yeah, you can go on
Rachel,
food.
I just saw Rachel, I just saw that slide you posted of in the Sahara. And for listeners, Sahara
Yeah.
means desert. So if you say
Yeah.
Sahara Desert, you're being redundant. This is what we learned. You've got a photo of that tagine. It was a trek in Morocco, but it
Yep.
reminded me
Yep.
of that incredible food we had with the camels in the desert, and
One of the best tagines ever.
we ate with our fingers, and I was afraid people were going to get more than I got.
Yeah, you had tagine stress.
Yes, I did. And
It,
harissa soup in Morocco, in Marrakesh. I love the harissa soup. The spring rolls in Hanoi. Oh, with those fresh herbs.
what about
Gar-
the? Oh, sorry, mom. Sorry.
garlic naan in Kathmandu. It wasn't remote, but I'd kill for that garlic naan today. Go ahead, your turn.
Oh, I was just when I was thinking about some of these things, I was thinking that I'm kind of like a homing pigeon. I think mom and I honestly have inner GPS units embedded into our cerebral cortexes that are designed to take us straight back to our favorite dishes or favorite shopping and markets in every country we've ever been to. I mean, you can plunk us down in the middle of Bangkok and you can blindfold us and we'll find our way back to this alley where this woman makes the best black sticky rice with warm coconut milk, mangoes, and sesame seeds. And
Yes.
mom knows about it. Like my mouth is watering.
Yeah, that sounds
We just
pretty delicious. So I have a
it's
question to ask.
absolutely.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Just for 1 second,
No.
we're having some technical difficulties with these slides. So I just would like to ask if people are seeing the slides, and if you can just put an answer in the chat box, that would be great, because it seems like we're
Good
stuck on that
idea.
first slide.
Yeah, it's strange. I was wondering
Yeah, it was
if it's
working before, so
possible.
I don't know what happened exactly, but if you
It
can just
never
give us
sh-
that feedback, that would be really helpful. So
it
anyway,
never
so back to food. Are you done talking about food, or would you like to talk some
Oh,
more about these delicious
I'd like
sounding
I'd
delicacies?
I'd love to add something.
Sure.
I just want to encourage people. I was with a girlfriend of mine, Kathy, in Mexico, and I took her to her first, street stand with tacos in Mexico City and her first ice cream. And she was horrified that I was even considering eating off of a food cart. And that's one of my biggest piece of advice is around food. Mom and I are huge food lovers. And some of the best meals we've ever had on our trips are off of these food carts or off of these hole in the wall restaurants. And the only times I've ever been sick have been from these large restaurants. And I actually was watching an Anthony Bourdain special recently, and he also agrees. And this is, a top chef. He he also agrees that honestly, stay away from your hotel restaurants. Go out onto the
Yeah.
street. It's those street stands. Go to the busy ones, not the ones where you hear crickets. Go to the busy ones where all the locals are. We ate fresh fruit, we ate salads, and of course, it's par for the course sometimes to get sick.
I
But
was just about to ask you about that.
it, I, those experiences, though, I think it's par for the course. That at some point you may get sick, but honestly, the only times I've been sick were from large restaurants, and they were tourist chains. And it's working. The slides are working, Andres.
Oh,
Perfect.
great.
Great.
You can
Thank
see,
you.
yeah. And
Yay.
you could probably
Okay.
keep it on the Morocco one, yeah. But
So you
yeah,
see the
that's
camel
my
trek in the Western Sahara,
yeah,
Morocco?
yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah. That's perfect,
Yay.
perfect.
Thank you for your
I see your
patience with
social
that.
sec. I see your social security number too, Ingrid. Is that bad?
Oops.
All right.
All right. So actually, we've kind of gone. My next question was about the food, and I think we've kind of covered that. So one thing you did talk to me about was that you sometimes have a competition with each other about exotic food, and one of the examples that you mentioned to me was the cockroaches in Cambodia.
That's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
Do you want to
We're,
tell it, or do you want me to, Mom?
well, I'll preface it with we. I wish when when the Asian cultures eat the insects that they do, it's a smart thing to do. It's low cost, it's high protein, easily available, cheaper than dirt, and I wish I could. I just was not culturally raised to do that. On our first trip through Bangkok, I'm going to choose. Yeah, had to be Bangkok. We were downtown. That was when we had to use that telephone booth to find Heather in Bangladesh, Rachel, and it was so hot.
Yes.
And we ate at a McDonald's because it had the only familiar food we could find. But out on the sidewalk were heaps and heaps and heaps of beautifully prepared insects and things. And it would be the smart thing to do. Okay, Rachel, over to you.
Oh, well, so Mom and I, we were very competitive. My dad is very competitive as well, and we always know that, we'll do things sometimes not because it's fun, but because we know we'll have bragging rights later. And an example of that is we were in Cambodia, and there was a street stand that had cockroaches that were literally, when I say cockroaches, they're about 2 inches long, and they're black, and they're roasted. And I don't think they marinate them in any tasty sauce or anything. I think it's
Oh,
a learned sort of taste. But we both thought, oh, let's go, we'll eat one of those because we don't know anyone that's eaten a cockroach. So Mom goes and I'm thinking I'm going to have a little bite of the cockroach, and then I can technically say I ate a cockroach. So I have
Now
this all
wait,
planned
I've got
out.
to put you on pause. We get our cameras ready. All the cameras are ready, right?
and and Mom, I'm kind of like bracing myself to bite off the head of the cockroach, and my mom just goes, "Oh, enough!" Just she grabs it and takes it out of my hand and pops the entire cockroach in her mouth. And I am ticked. I'm really ticked because now I know she's done it before me. She's made me look like a total wuss. And lastly, and worst of all, it means I have to eat the whole cockroach.
Oh, no.
Because if I don't eat the whole cockroach, I will never hear the end of it ever. So I was pretty ticked. I ate the whole cockroach, and about 10 minutes later, we're walking down a dark street, and I'm picking something out of my teeth, and I realize they're the little legs of the cockroach. So we drank a lot of smoothies that night to wash it down with the face. I'll never forgive her for that.
Well, so this might be a good time to ask you, and I guess I have to ask Rachel this. How did Karen get the name Mama Chihuahua?
So my mom, for those of her that have known her a long time, my mom looks like this sweet person. She's got black hair, blue eyes. She's a beautiful woman. She's only about 5'4". Her mother was real tiny too. Sweet woman, really sweet. You did not want to cross Karen Custer Thurston. Her temper comes out. We had so many things happen in the early years of traveling together that I had to write a story about it. And I actually wrote a story for my graduate class at USC called Mama Chihuahua, World's Fiercest Travel Partner. And basically it just talked about how she actually stood in front of a yak that was charging me because she wouldn't let, she would rather risk her own life than have a yak take out her daughter. She pushed over a stand of 5 men, taxi drivers, that started harassing us. She's launched bookshelves off of stairwells that were full of books. And I wrote this story, and my teacher said, that's a great story, but you didn't listen to the rules of, the assignment. It's a nonfiction class. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is all real. I can't make this up. So this story was published in a travel anthology book called More Sand in My Bra, or something like that, I think. Or The Thong Also Rises. Anyway, the name has now stuck, and I refer to her as Mama Chihuahua because she's this tiny little thing, but man, when you cross her, she turns into this fierce, fierce beast. And we've made a joke that in the last couple of years, her temper has she's gotten a lot more control over it, and she also realizes that situations that used to make her uncomfortable, she feels safer in. And my temper started flaring up. So we joke that I'm hija de la Chihuahua now.
uh, well, it sounds like it's a well-earned title.
Well, I'd like to be honest enough to interject that my temper has been a real problem in the early years. I'm mellowing with age. I've learned that there are some cultures that if you cause the other person to lose face, you're worse off than you were. And Rachel has been very supportive in helping me understand how frightening I am when I am with that white hot anger. So I'm just being really public in this forum to say that she's been so helpful helping me get that under control. And Rachel, that one night in Bangkok when we got dumped in that bordello room and you were so surprised that I wasn't angry, I was just too tired and sleepy to be angry. I just didn't have any energy at all.
Can I add?
Really, no, let me finish this. I'm just so grateful to her that she has stood by me. She has said, you scare me, and I just really appreciate her love and support with that. And she is crossing over to the daughter of the Mama Chihuahua. It's kind of weird.
Well, I would imagine that there are times when you really have to set your boundaries and you really have to defend yourself. And
That's true.
Yeah, because it sounds like you've put yourselves in some risky situations where that has been very necessary.
Very well spoken. Absolutely well spoken, Ingrid. Right on.
Okay.
I don't know if you if I can speak to that too, about that line we ride. Was
Sure.
that okay? Or I was thinking about, on our trips, the biggest challenges for us, and I think one of them is that we definitely both have our trigger points, and I'm really proud of Mom for learning to control her temper. And you know, the we've over the years usually had one big blowout fight, and in the past couple of years we have less and less of those. I think the bigger challenge with travel has to do with the people around you and the dangers around you. Because for us, there's love. The love is always going to connect my mom and I. Um, but as women travelers, you're always riding that line between keeping aware of your surroundings. And you were just talking a little bit about this, Ingrid, that fine line is
Mm-hmm.
you have
Yeah.
to keep your wits about you in potentially dangerous situations. And that's whether physical on a trek, or most of the time those dangerous situations have to do with other people. Um, and yet you want to still be open to trusting people. And the biggest risk we take when we travel is to trust other people. And we've been very blessed to have good instincts around things. But that risk in trusting people has led us to the biggest rewards in our travels. And I've found that most people in the world are 99.9% honest, kind-hearted people. And I've really gotten a sense of that when you travel, that most people are really trustworthy. And that's a line that every traveler has to find, where their comfort is between trusting and keeping
And
being
being
aware.
on alert.
Well
Yeah,
said, Rachel.
absolutely.
Well said.
Yes. Indeed. And Karen, would you like to add to that? Actually, you guys are jumping ahead of my question here, because that
Oh,
was the
sorry.
next
Oh,
question. No,
so,
the next question, this is great, is what were
oh,
some of the
sorry.
challenges? So that's
Uh,
exactly what we're talking about. And
well,
also
we
any lessons that came out of those challenges.
But before we're always checking in. I'm springboarding off of what you said before the challenge thing. We're always checking in with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that? I'll say to her. She'll say to me, "How'd you feel about that? I mean, what do you think? What do you think? And do you feel if we feel unsafe somewhere, we get out of Dodge? There's certain parts of certain towns. I don't want to name the towns, Rachel, because I don't want to. Well, no, I mean I don't want to do that. Everybody needs to have their own journey. But there are times that we just don't feel comfortable, and we don't go there. We don't go there after dark. We'll ask the people we've befriended, are we safe? Where's the perimeter? We had a perimeter in one of the larger towns in Peru, that you were safe within that perimeter. It's not a wall perimeter. It's a general distance of blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, you'll be fine after dark. And our radar's up all the time, if you want to call it sixth sense, whatever. I'm her mother. When I will always be her mother, and I am always watching, because she is my daughter. I know she can kick bums, but I'm always watching. So our radar's up, and we are aware all the time. If she knows I stop, it's because I don't want somebody behind me. I want them to pass me on the sidewalk. So anyway, and the challenges. Oh, I need to think about that. Rachel, you go ahead.
What the
We are way
challenges?
more comfortable too.
Yeah.
We are way more comfortable now than the first. I still remember the first day that we stepped out of the airport when we went to Nepal in 2000. Um, we had never been in a developing world country alone as women. And I remember that rush and that fear of stepping out of the Kathmandu airport. It looked like a bomb had gone off. And
Mercy.
there were it felt like a million men just rushing towards us, shouting. And it was so scary for
Yeah, I can
us. And
imagine.
we had a really bad cab. And by the way, we love Nepal. And every experience except probably this one has been positive. But the first taxi driver we got into a fight with him because he wouldn't take us where we wanted, and we're afraid. And he just dumped us off in the middle of the city and just kicked us out of the cab. And we now would handle it so differently. Now, when mom's been to Nepal 4 times, we now know Nepalese are the kindest, coolest people, and none of those men coming towards us meant us harm. They just want our business with taxis. And we've learned when you arrive
may I add that they were all
Yeah.
taxi drivers, very, very poor.
Yeah.
They just wanted our business, and that was shocking. Thank you,
And
Rachel.
then we happened to get a bad apple, but in the first taxi driver, but that was a rare thing. But now, if we were to, anytime we come out of an airport in a developing world country and it's late at night, and we know what to do, we know exactly, have the currency ready, we know that people are going to be coming towards us in a rush for taxis, and they don't mean us harm. And of course, you keep your wits about you in certain cities, especially. But we're completely different women than we were, you know, 15 years ago or 13 years ago, because my math isn't very good right now. Okay.
So these have been incredible lessons for you, all these challenges. And that's one of the things that I'm really interested in
Sure.
how you deal with things differently. So it's really nice to hear how you would handle things that before were just so scary and intimidating before, and now you have a much better understanding of them.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, if you want me to be like, if you want me to articulate what some of those lessons are too, I can say that. And Mom, you probably can too.
Well, we probably have time for one if you want to use an example.
Oh, sure.
I think we'd love to hear that.
Um, Mom, did you want to go?
no, I'm okay.
Okay. Um, I would say, well, if you're coming out of an airport at 2 o'clock in the morning, make sure to have currency on hand and make
Okay.
sure to keep your, yeah. But you're talking about metaphors and so on. I would just say learn to be aware of your surroundings, but also know the right times when you can let your guard down and trust people, because it's those
Mhm.
moments of connection with people and other cultures that have formed some of our best experiences.
It
Kind
sounds like
people,
being in tune with yourself and knowing that inner compass, really getting in touch with that
Yeah,
inner compass and that sixth sense. That's what I'm hearing you both saying is so
absolutely.
important in being able to negotiate some of these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about following your instincts.
Yeah. I think that most people can relate to that, that if they do that, that the outcome is very different than if you don't do that, and then how many times later do you say, oh my god, I should have just listened to my inner
Mm-hmm.
voice before, my gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you two have about traveling together as a mother-daughter team or female to female?
I would say try a. Are we speaking of two people hypothetically who would like to do that and how they go about it? Is
Do the
that the question,
traveling
Ingrid?
together. Yes, yes.
I would recommend trying a shorter end trip. We travel for 30 days or so, and we're trapped with each other for 30 days, which always turns out great for us. But I would say until you know your behaviors and habits, try a short trip first. It can be
Hmm.
2 hours, or it can be a day long, or an overnight somewhere, because when you're living out of each other's pocket, it really is close. It's close surroundings, and then work up from there. As she has referenced, we know each other's triggers. We know who likes to get up early and stay up late. Um, and our basis is we support each other, we're respectful, we're non-judgmental, we're loving, and that's the baseline we work from. But we still have triggers to work through. So short trip first and work up from there.
Hmm.
Rachel?
Hmm. Okay.
I would say, yeah, it's amazing that you can still know each other's triggers, but still step on landmines every now and then. And Ingrid, it's amazing. As perfect as I am, I somehow trigger Mom sometimes. Um, I
Don't
would
we all
say,
like to think that about ourselves?
yes, but in some cases, it's so true. No, um, yes, I would say for sure, absolutely, hands down, traveling with anyone, whether it's, your mother or daughter, another friend, respect, communication, keeping a good sense of humor, and sharing decision making. I think between Mom and I, it's really important that I don't steamroll her with my agendas and desires for doing things on a trip. So we
Yeah.
also try to take on different roles or responsibilities. When we travel, I'm in charge, for instance, of the kitty or finances, and she's in charge of getting us fresh water for the day, which is actually very important and a big deal when you're in other
I
countries.
can imagine. Yeah.
Um, we also have a tradition of talking before every trip. It's kind of like a prenuptial agreement where and this is so important, is to get on the same page about what you both want from the trip and what your expectations are, because you can get halfway through a trip and realize that you're on completely different pages. So we have a meeting where we co-create the trip together. We make sure that we're going to include the top priorities for both of us. And most importantly, the top goal of our trip is about connection with each other. It has to come above everything. And it's something that we've really tried to be conscious of on our trips, is that we're in communication with each other, and that that's the biggest goal of the trip, is to love each other and connect, feel connected.
There's that communication thing again.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
funny how that works.
Yeah, it sounds like that is really key. And I really love the idea that you communicate with each other really about what those expectations are and what you want to get out of the trip, and then plan it accordingly. It sounds like that is just really key to so many of the other things that we've been talking about.
Well, that was her idea years ago, and it has served us well.
See what a good daughter I am.
Yeah.
I
Watch
actually,
it.
I have to add a little humor here, that I do sometimes wish mom would just do what I wanted her to do. And I made a joke years ago that we both have been sick at different times, and of course I don't want my mom ever being really sick, but when she's just a baby bit sick and just a little bit sick, she becomes a lot more malleable, and she'll do whatever I want. And I just tease her about it. Sometimes just maybe a little bit tired today, or a little bit, and then she'll just let me do what I want to do.
And Karen, do you have that feeling about Rachel too?
Well, there's not much that slows her down. I'll tell you what. There just isn't much. When she is sick, she's pretty sick, and I'm looking for electrolytes and some serious things. But I'm laughing about what she just said about me. I remember that room in Worth, it's at in Morocco, that she started acting really funny, and I had been sick. And
You've
she
been
said,
really
you
sick.
were really fun when you were sick.
Because suddenly I didn't realize how she had a low grade, she had a low grade pneumonia or something, but it was really low grade, just baby bit. And then all of a sudden that day, she starts arguing with me. She doesn't want to go to the restaurant I want to go, and she doesn't want to go to the same museum. And I'm like, you're feeling better, aren't you? This kind of
Uh,
sucks.
that's great. Well, we probably should move on, and I think this question is more for Karen, but Rachel, certainly feel free to jump
Sure.
in. But Karen, I know your perspective is so much about helping older women to feel empowered. So the question is, what
Yes,
would you say to older women about traveling?
I and I've talked to, I know people who have hesitated and dream and think, I wish I could do that. So for whatever reason, and there's so many reasons not to leave home, including animals and not wanting to leave animals. I really don't like leaving mine, and I'm glad to see them when I come back home. If I could only introduce folks to the people that we have met, and the relationships and the friendships, deep friendships we have made all over the world, the cultures we've experienced, the beautiful foods, the pretty foods, the fresh fish everywhere, the vistas. I mean, part of my heart's in the Himalayas of Nepal, part of my heart's in South Africa, part of our hearts are in Tasmania and in New Zealand. These places, and of course the United States is beautiful, and we love traveling the United States. I'm traveling as long as I can, to these faraway places, which are harder and longer, more expensive to get to. The world is a beautiful, surprising, ennobling, fabulous training ground for artists and for thinkers and for travelers and for hikers and horseback riders. There's just a whole palette out there to experience, and again, I just feel blessed that I can sample from it. So Rachel gives slideshows and presentations to show how beautiful these places are. I just don't think I could say it any differently than how I said it.
Well, and you are an incredible inspiration to some of these older women about, look at the trips that you've taken and the challenges that you've risen up to, and you
Thank
haven't
you.
let anything stop you. And I think that's a terrific inspiration for particularly the population of women that I work with, that, as you say, there are all kinds of reasons why they feel that they wish they
Yes,
could do it, but they can't do it. And
yes.
the message really is, as you and I have talked, that it's never too late to start doing something. And even if it's scary, just do it.
But that's right. And the video series I'm putting together for YouTube, I need to mention, we love to travel. I mean, we love to travel when I visit Rachel 50 miles out of her hometown. I love to travel around northern Arizona. It doesn't have to be out of the country. This is a beautiful country, and there's so many places and back roads to see and wildlife to see. I mean, any travel is good. All travel is good.
Could I add to
Absolutely.
that?
Sure, of
Ingrid, would
course.
you mind? I well, with two things. One is that I was going to say that I'm so proud of my mom as well. We are often traveling in places like Camelback in the Sahara, or on top of a bus in Nepal, and you don't see many women in their 60s doing this voluntarily.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
you know, and my mom is just and I don't know how to say this with that. She's a rock star, and I'm really proud of you, Mom, for everything that you've pushed through, and you are a role model for other women. And
Thank you.
I wanted to speak to three things that I think that hold people back from travel, um, and this is what I would share with women that are interested in traveling, is that I've noticed people have three different types of fears around travel. They fear that they don't have enough money, fear they don't have enough time, and fear for their safety.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'll say first that it doesn't have to be expensive. We traveled for a month in Peru, and it was $3,000, including everything: lodging, trekking, shopping, everything. We traveled for a month in China, and I think it was $1,000. I know people blow that in a weekend in Vegas. Um, you don't. You also, the fear of having time. You know, it's all about carving out time in your schedule, and I think if you make it a priority, you can even do an away trip for the weekend. And last, about safety, it's really easy to have overinflated fears of other countries. You'd be surprised of how afraid people are of coming to the U.S. and getting shot on the street, because that's what their media is showing them. And I think it's so easy to make these wide sweeping generalizations about other countries based on what we're reading in the news. And we found, really haven't felt physically threatened very often at all. I think there were maybe one or two times ever in 13 years.
Mm, wow. That,
Well said.
yeah, that's
Mom knows exactly where they were too.
Yeah, I do.
I can
We're
imagine.
not going to say. But it's all about, I think everyone has their own Everest. A friend of ours said that in Nepal, and it's all about nudging that comfort zone, whether it's just going by yourself to San Diego and staying at a youth hostel in San Diego. It doesn't have to be, going to Everest Base Camp right away. It's baby steps.
Absolutely. I like to say that big changes take small steps, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
If you want
Absolutely.
to move ahead and take that step out of your comfort zone, it's one step at a time. It's not by leaps and bounds that you suddenly make a change.
Good words.
Absolutely.
Good words.
So, how do your photos and your travel journals, which, by the way, I had the privilege of reading Rachel's travel journal of her trip to Peru and also Karen's, and they were both just awesome. So, what would you like
Thank
to do
you.
with these photos and travel journals, and how do they portray your experiences, and what are you going to do with them?
My writings are evidence that I was there. They're just proof I was there. They're a bonding experience. She and I are both photographers, so we have photos that we can exchange. And several of these that she posted, I hadn't seen the one from Peru, so it's just magnificent to see something I didn't know existed. I will use my writings, Rachel calls them blogs, I call them newsletters that I send out from these trips. I'll use my physical journals that I keep. We both keep a daily journal, and then we write online. I'll use all of that to springboard off of as references for my travel adventure writing. I'll use the photos along with those travel adventure writings for publication. We both use them for education. She might speak to the fact that she shares her photos with the people back home so that they can see what a country looks like. And it's just the whole thing, all those words and photographs are a record of, again, this privilege I have to be with her. Rachel?
Yeah, well, I basically think Mom and I, we want to conquer the world with an amazing travel channel reality show on mothers and daughters traveling around the world. I think
Well,
that would be a
it sounds
blast.
like you've conquered
I,
a lot of it already.
well, for me, but all jokes aside, for me, travel is not, our experiences aren't real. And this is me being the obsessive writer and photographer. None of it is real until I can share it with people. And the first person is with Mom. She's the only person on the planet that has all of these memories with me. But then above and beyond that, being able to share these stories in my blogs, and then coming back and giving slideshows and doing, movies on these travels, it's one of the greatest joys for me, because I'm sharing the world with people that either do it themselves or they want to do it. And
I was just
it's
going to say
just
it's inspiring other people when they see
it's
these photos and read
absolutely.
your writings.
And for me, that's one of the greatest joys. Like, I honestly don't feel like a memory or a place is galvanized. And I love researching an area. I did a really great blog on Peru on the alternatives to Machu Picchu and how much
Yes,
more there is. There are a lot of
Hmm.
mysteries and
yes.
amazing miracles in Peru archaeologically. But I love sharing. I love sharing the photos and stories because I love inspiring people. And we we definitely, Mom and I are in communication around, we'd love to write a book together about all of these travels around the world. And we both have newsletters. We want to do a series of videos. And to those of you listening, also, if you're not on it already, and you want to subscribe to our newsletters and videos, please send us an email. I also have started a Facebook group called, that you had mentioned, Ingrid, called World Travel for Free Spirits, where I hope to grow a community of like-minded free spirits that want to share travel resources and stories, because it really is um, impacted who I am as a person, or these trips together.
Oh, sure. So we've been leaving this slide up that has a lot of the contact information for both Rachel and Karen. So if you want to contact them, here is the information to do that. And we kind of have to wrap this up, Rachel and Karen, unfortunately, because I have really enjoyed this, and I hope
Right.
everybody else that has been listening has too. So I'm going to give you a very difficult task. I'm going to give you each one word to sum up the last 13 years of travel and
Ah,
experience together. One
One,
word.
did you
wow.
say one word or one sentence? That's hard for
Oh,
a
One
that's
writer.
cheating.
word.
One word or a
I'm going to
phrase.
go with,
Okay, a phrase.
and I'm going to skinny down to one word, fantastic.
Ah, very good.
Oh, that's
Rachel?
tough, Ingrid. You're saying that to a writer. That's tough. Can I share a? I would say world expanding.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so while we're still on this slide, I first of all wanted to just give you an incredible thank you, Rachel and Karen, for
Oh,
talking to us today and for doing this interview. It's been fascinating, and
Thank
as
you
I
for
said in the
having us.
beginning, it's been so wonderful to get to know you a little bit and hear about all these fantastic experiences that you've had. So I want to
Th-
give people a chance to ask you questions. So in a minute, we're going to, excuse me, we're going to unmute you because you've been muted so that you can raise your hand. And I also wanted to remind everybody that this is being recorded today, and hopefully we can figure out what happened with the slides. I'm so glad you were able to see them because Rachel did an awesome job putting those together. Next. And
Thank you so much
I
for
just
having us,
wanted to
Ingrid.
show you a slide of an organization called Adventure Women. Just in case some of you would prefer to do this travel, but maybe you would like to do it with an organization or a tour. And I actually, this is Bhutan, and I actually went 5 years ago with my older daughter to Bhutan, and we had an incredible experience there. I really love this organization because they give you time to do things on your own. So it's not like every minute is organized. So you see the
Wow,
contact
good.
Sounds wonderful.
information here. I'm going to leave that up for a minute so that you can take a look at it. And while I'm on the subject of my daughter, just tell you a quick story about how I got to know Rachel, because I met her at an event and we were talking about scheduling something, and she said she couldn't do it because she was going to Peru with her mom. And I said to her, "Wow, I'm going to Peru in August with my daughter."
Oh,
So
that's
that's
neat.
how the whole thing started. Basically, we were talking about it, and then I had the privilege of getting on Rachel's email list and hearing about her, or reading, I should say, about their adventures, and I was just fascinated. So I am about to go to Peru myself. We're not going on our own, and but I'll tell you, I'm getting very inspired to do that for the future.
You might be
That
cursing our names though too, Ingrid.
Not at all. Okay, and so lastly, I would like to again thank you so much for being with me today and doing this interview. And for those of you who are listening, this is me. Again, my name's Ingrid Surratt. I am a life transitions coach, and my company is called My Coaching Circle, and this is my contact information. And I do a lot of workshops and group coaching. I do individual coaching. I do online presentations. Now we're starting this telesummit series, and I'm so honored and flattered that Rachel and Karen said that they would do this and launch this for me. And just a little reminder again about what this is going to be all about, this telesummit series. We really want to bring programs that are going to inspire and motivate people and empower them and make them feel that it's never too late to start something. So I am now going to unmute you all and see if there are
Ingrid,
any
it's been
questions.
such, I
Thank
just
you
want to
so
say it's
much for
been
having us.
such a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. It has indeed been a pleasure for me too.
Such a pleasure.
Same here, Karen, for both of you.
Ingrid, I'd like to say too that this has been such a great opportunity for Mom and I to celebrate these experiences together. Very
Yes.
grateful to you for giving us that platform.
Well, and I want to keep checking in with you. I don't want to wait another 13 years. So,
And I am so going to think of you and your daughter on that wonderful trip to Peru.
well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I will for sure, I'm sure I'm not going to have a travel journal anywhere near as wonderful as Rachel's, but I will try to do that.
Well,
You've inspired me. Okay, we're trying to unmute you all. So, are there any questions for Rachel or Karen? And you can also type into the question box if you don't want to ask it verbally or are having trouble doing so. Okay, so I have a question in the question box here. That's such an awesome experience this evening. How do you decide whether to travel to a new destination or repeat a favorite?
oh, what a good
Wait,
question.
could you ask that once more, Ingrid? I'm sorry.
Sure. How do you decide whether to travel to a new destination or repeat a favorite?
That is an outstanding
Yeah, that is.
question. It is hard. It is difficult. Difficult, difficult, difficult. It's hard. Can you tell I'm stalling?
Well, I'll jump in and say that there's so many amazing places in the world that we want to see, and we will pick places based on how expensive they are and what the weather is when we can travel and the plane tickets. And there are a few places that we definitely feel merit multiple visits, and a few of those have been Australia, specifically Tasmania and Nepal, um, Mexico, and then there are other places where it's been an awesome trip, but we still have so many places on our bucket list, so to speak. So I think there are definitely lots of factors, and we are pulled sometimes between our favorite places to travel and then new places that we've never seen.
Excellent question.
So I have a question for Rachel. You're going to laugh, Rachel.
I bet it's from Wash.
I don't know, but the question is, Hubba Hubba, is Rachel single?
Oh my God, that's funny. That's funny. That's either Eric or Wash, I think. I don't know.
Somebody liked your
That's
picture.
that's funny. What's the email address say?
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another question. Have you been to Cuba?
Ooh,
We haven't. Yeah. Go ahead,
good
Mom.
question. It's come up. I've wanted to go there. I think
Sorry
we
about that.
decided the infrastructure wasn't there. We weren't sure there would be even places for us to stay, and we stay at the low end. We weren't sure that there was isn't that what we decided, Rachel? That we
Well,
weren't.
you could stay in people's homes in Cuba. I've always we've tossed it around. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay. We've talked about it a few times, and I just saw a really fantastic travel slideshow on Cuba, and I think the main things when you go to Cuba are it's the cultural experience, and it's a great photography opportunity, and the one thing that bummed me out though was realizing there's not really good shopping. And we didn't talk much about it, but man, I love shopping. I love shopping in markets, and I don't think there's a lot of shopping, as it turns out, on a communist island. So, except maybe for cigars. So, we've talked about it. It's not probably in my top 10 right now, but we've always heard really good things about Cuba, and the people
Yes.
there are fantastic and very rich culture and music.
Yeah, I think we just don't have enough facts yet, and there are so many places. That's a good question.
Yeah, so have you been thinking about what is the next trip and where you think
Yes,
you might want to go?
Yes.
thinking of Turkey.
Aha.
Yes, and this has been an ongoing. I've been really, really, really wanting to go to Turkey, and if I push too much with Mom, she'll resist. And I pushed a little too hard with Turkey, so on this last trip to Peru, we ran into several people that have been to Turkey, and it's a dream. That's been a dream of mine to go for a long time, and I think she's coming around and open to going. Right, Mom?
Yes, I'll go, but I told you I'll be going with an attitude, but I'll go.
And what kind of attitude is that, Karen?
Well, I'm trying to pick my words carefully, and that is sometimes very difficult towards me,
Do you want me to
for me to do.
do you want me to translate?
You might do a better job.
Yeah.
Let's see. Go ahead.
I'm just going to translate so it's not a non PC. One of our tougher trips was Morocco. We had a really tough time in Morocco, and the men were very aggressive to us. And um, I think Mom's concerned, and I think that's for multiple reasons. In Morocco, we've heard very different things about Turkey, but I think Mom is a little concerned that we may encounter some sexism and some aggressiveness from men there. And I've only heard good things about Turkey. I'm not too worried about it, but I know it's a concern for her because we had a few really crazy, very aggressive encounters in Morocco.
So,
I don't take disrespect well at all.
yeah. And one of the things that I'm not sure that we talked about it, that you told me, and again when we were preparing for this interview, was that these travel experiences have really brought to you both a new appreciation of how uh, free women are in this country compared to so
Oh
many
my
other
goodness.
places in the world.
Yes. Oh my goodness. The freedoms we have, I'm. It's just remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
I was just laughing that did I interrupt you, Mom?
Oh, I think I
I'm
need to be
sorry.
interrupted because I could just go on
No,
forever
no,
about
I'm so sorry.
how fortunate we are, and I don't believe women have full equality as Americans, but we sure are up at the top of the heap comparatively.
You know, and it's so easy. I think I just yesterday was frustrated about a few things in my life, and it's so easy to get caught up in our stuff. And one of the things that I need to do every year is to step outside of this life, go to another country,
Mm-hmm.
and really get an attitude adjustment, because you're out in the stream of the world and everything's put into perspective. Every trip I come home from, I'm so grateful for the life I have, not just as a woman. I mean, the last trip I was just happy that all the bathrooms had toilet paper.
Yeah.
That I could find, and I'm not even kidding, like this was
Yeah.
really fun, that I could find gluten-free bread at Trader Joe's. I was shocked when I crossed the road, for the pedestrian light, and the cars actually stopped for me and they didn't speed up and honk at me. I mean,
Yes.
it's little things like that. And
Exactly.
not to make light of what it's like in other countries, but you take for granted so much,
Yeah, I think
until
that's
you
really
you
true.
step outside. And I just think it's super important for me to live into gratitude, and a lot of that is leaving and stepping out of my comfort zone.
And actually, you need to be doing that traveling in order to get that appreciation for the things that we take so much for granted here.
Oh, yes.
And I
Absolutely.
mean, I too have had experiences in other places, and I come back and I get off the plane and I kiss the ground. I'm
Yes,
so happy to be
I've
here.
done that.
There have been some trips that we've done that too.
I have done. I think Rachel had the greatest quote in Peru. It was something about what did you say? It was a suggestion not to hit the pedestrians. What was that you said?
Yeah, the pedestrian walkways are more of a laughable suggestion than an actual rule. It's
Yeah, no one
it's.
ever stopped for us.
Could I add something too about the women in other countries?
Sure, absolutely.
Um, I was just gonna say that, just speaking to women, we are so lucky. And Mom's right. We don't have all of the equality and freedoms, but man, we have it. We are really fortunate to be living in this country. When you travel, you see life is so hard for people, and it's
Hmm.
especially hard for women.
Yeah.
I mean, women age faster. It's just brutal. It's really brutal. I mean, you think about a washing machine. It's one of the greatest liberating devices. I've spent time in Central America, with the family in the mountains, and half of the day was spent just beating clothing against a rock on the side of the river and washing the clothes.
Wow.
It's
Yep.
it's women are incredibly strong and resilient, but I'm hoping so much in the coming years that they're going to have more access to education, because I think with that comes advancement for the whole society.
Absolutely.
Yes, for women's access to education, absolutely.
Yeah, that seems to be the key. It really does.
Hmm.
So again, we're having a little bit of a technical problem unmuting everybody, so I'm going to just give you another minute or two. If you do have a question, if you could type it into the question box, which is what I've been reading from, that would be great. And then I think we're going to wrap it up in the next couple of minutes. So does anybody else have any questions or comments for any of us? Okay, so somebody just made a comment that said, I was thrilled that I never sat on a wet toilet seat in Peru.
Well, I call it. I think that I wouldn't. Mom and I joke about this. I never sit on public toilets. I hover, so I don't
Yes.
recommend anyone ever sitting on a public toilet seat. And in Asia, you don't even get the seat. It's like, the pits and stuff. We could probably do a coffee table book on toilets around the world, because they're fodder for some great stories. That's for sure.
Have you taken
Rachel's
pictures
referring
of
to
those toilet seats?
uh, probably somewhere. They're called squat toilets. There's a hole either in ceramic or the ground.
Oh,
And
yes.
actually, our toilets, what we use here, are called European toilets. And no, it's commonplace to have a squat toilet where it's a hole in the ground. And if you're really lucky, there are two boards nailed down to put your feet on. But
Oh, boy.
that's pretty highfalutin.
And
Oh, my
toilet
God.
paper And honestly, toilet paper is like gold when you're traveling.
Oh,
You
yeah.
learn that when you're in a developing world country, you never travel without your an extra roll of toilet paper because
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to find public restrooms, and you never want to be without toilet
No,
paper.
good
Yes.
advice. Yeah.
And it's the simple things really that make a trip.
Well, I experienced some of those things in Bhutan because when we were there 5 years ago, it was just opening up to the outside world.
Oh, I'll bet you
And
did.
it, so some of the things that you're saying about bathrooms, I can really relate to, and also showers.
Yes.
It was
Oh, yeah.
It,
a very interesting experience.
I have a quote, and by the way, we really want to go to Bhutan. That's definitely on my list.
Well, it's a
I
very
have
magical place.
I have a quote with mom, a joke that there are three things that I think are really underrated pleasures in this life, and one is a hot shower, a good night's rest, and a clean pair of clothes. It's like
Yes,
it goes. They're simple things that you don't realize how important they are until you're in
exactly.
those places.
Exactly. Okay, so we have a another question. Please state your bucket list trips.
Oh, I could not. That I just uh, that's I can't.
I can't. Do you mind if I name some places, mom?
Oh yes, I mind. Go ahead.
Oh yes, you do mind? Oh, I'm sorry. Is it because
Oh,
you don't want to
stop
hex the
it.
trips?
Stop it. Go ahead.
Is it because you don't want to hex the trips, or because you don't know what they are?
I want to go back. I need another life. That's a good question. I need another lifetime for all the travel I want to do, and I
Mm.
only have so many more years, but I need a lifetime. So that's a good question. I can't answer it.
I think I'd like to go. I want to go back to Chile. I'd like to go to Colombia, Brazil, Mexico. I could go every year to Mexico and be a happy camper. I think it's one of the most underrated countries to Americans. It's such a rich, diverse, incredible country. I want to go to Iceland, Turkey. I'd like to see Petra and Jordan.
Hmm.
Um, I'd like to maybe do a day trip into Russia, but not spend too much time. There's not as much shopping in Russia either. No, I think I'd like to see part of Russia and Siberia. Go back to Australia for sure. Asia, there's so much. I haven't been to Laos before.
Well,
Thailand.
that's quite a bucket
Um,
list.
yeah, there's so much. I've studied Arabic as well as Spanish, and definitely want to see more of the Middle East, like Jordan and
Well,
Turkey.
maybe
Although
things need to
Turkey's sort of
quiet
a
down a
bridge
little bit
country.
before you do that,
Why
right?
is there stuff going on?
Just
Yes,
a little.
I'll bring you up to date, Rachel.
All right. I'm
I'll bring
kidding.
you up to date.
Okay.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we are going to end. And this again has been absolutely delightful. I can't wait to do an update with you both, maybe a year from now, and hear about Turkey or wherever you end up, and hear about some of the upcoming adventures.
Well, Ingrid, you are marvelous. You are marvelous.
Oh, well, thank
It's
you. But that's only a
such a pleasure.
reflection of you.
It's such a pleasure working with you, and I highly enjoyed the Thursday night recording. Highly enjoyed that. I would encourage anybody. Ingrid had a presentation of IQ and EQ, emotional quotient. It was wonderful. I picked it up as a recording.
Oh, thank you so much for the endorsement. I really appreciate that.
You're
I
welcome.
I want to thank you as well for giving us the opportunity to talk today, and I'm so happy that we met. A big plug to AWC for connecting us this year. A great organization that we're belong to, and I want to tell you, I hope you have a fantastic trip with your daughter. Maybe we'll do an interview of you after the
Yes,
cruise trip with your
Okay.
daughter.
Yeah,
yes.
that would be
We
great.
could.
That would really be fun. Okay, well, I will call you both right after this, and I would like to thank everybody for hanging in there. There's a lot of you that are still listening in, and I
Oh,
really appreciate
thank you,
that.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. And thank you, by the way, I wanted to say that I'm so grateful for the support on our travel blogs over the years to so many of our friends, which have encouraged us to keep writing and sharing these stories. And
Yes,
we're really excited about doing a larger project and getting more of this out there to inspire more people to travel, but a huge thank you to our friends and family for supporting us for so many years.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next month. We're going to have another telesummit, and we will definitely post an announcement about that and hope to see you then. So thank you
Yay.
so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.